sound wall. Once again, this is not sanctioned by the council, so we do not have the authority to make ordinances or resolutions tonight on this. However, I'm moderating it. We do have a couple of council members here, but they're speaking as citizens, not aldermen, because we do not have the authority to speak for the whole council. However, I do ask, the last meeting went fairly well, but some people did step out, not out of line, but basically out of pace. If you would, please raise your hand once you're acknowledged, and they'll answer your question or ask a question. I don't want it to get out of topic and 3 or 4 people talking at the same time. So if you do, I'm going to end up stopping you. So please, let's try to bear with them as best we can. I want to thank the Houston Yacht Club, first off, for letting us come in and use their facility tonight. We appreciate that very much. I want to thank the citizens for showing up. We appreciate that. I want to thank TxDOT for showing up. We really appreciate it. Looks like we got all the big guns out here tonight. Dr. Stanley Cooper right here that's going to be starting off tonight. He is in charge of the sound wall. He'll be discussing that, the noise levels and whatnot. Alfred Ben Bishop will be talking about design and engineering and drainage. That'll be the second part. And Mr. Patty Henry is here to observe also. Then Mr. Lucio Ortiz is here to talk about all the housekeeping parts of that project. I'm going to let Mr. Cooper start it off with us. Once he goes over, he has a list of questions that were asked at the last council meeting. Possibility some of the questions were missed. He will go over what he has. Once he's done, he will start taking questions. Please keep your questions to what he's specifically talking about. Let's not get off on drainage or one or the other, because then we'll just have to pull somebody else up here. So if you do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Once again, thank you everybody for showing up. Dr. Cooper, it's all yours, sir. I apologize. I'm Mayor Moses. I didn't start that off right. I think most of you know, but I am Mayor Moses. Alderman Boyer is here. Alderman Adams is here. I don't see anybody else at this time. Thank you.
As the mayor mentioned, my name is Dr. Stanley Cooper. I'm the noise specialist for the Texas Department of Transportation in Houston. And so I'm going to try to address some of the noise questions that you had that my supervisor collected at the last meeting. The first question is, will the wall be painted? The simple answer is yes. Next slide, please. This is a picture of the noise barrier on FM 865 County Boulevard. This is what the exterior of the wall will look like, facing toward State Highway 146. And we have color chips back at the table if you would like to take those home with you. That's the side facing the highway. Your side, there's a couple of options. We can paint it entirely the softer tan color that you see there, or we can do the upper part softer tan and paint it a wave pattern like you see here with the blue color called wet bracing blue. And that's going to be a decision that the adjacent property owners make. I've got survey forms here if you want to come up after the meeting. Get the survey forms, you can fill them out tonight, leave them with me. We've got other information on there as to how you can get the surveys back to us if you want to take them home and decide later. The second question was, can a stone facade be put on the back or retrofitted onto the back of the barrier? Unfortunately, no, we don't do that. Third question was, can TxDOT plant large plants, shrubs, back in on the residential side of the barrier? We typically put our barriers right up close to the right-of-way line, so any plantings like that would have to be on residential property. And that's something that state law precludes TxDOT from doing. That would be considered an improvement of private property. If you want to plant something there, feel free. It doesn't bother us. But TxDOT can't plant them on your property. The next question relates to the effectiveness of the sound wall. They wanted to know if TxDOT would be doing post-construction noise measurements. Noise barriers were a proven technology before before I joined TxDOT 19 years ago. We don't go out there to determine did it meet our goals. We're pretty confident that they will. And I can spout numbers to you, but it won't mean anything. The best way to determine how effective a barrier is to go out and stand next to it and then walk behind it. Talk to some of your neighbors that live behind the wall that's already up. See what they say. Because the numbers don't mean anything. This is what matters. It's what you hear or don't hear. There was one other question here that it's going to take two of us to answer completely. There was a request to leave out a section of the noise wall. The way noise walls work is to block the flow of the noise. Unfortunately, it doesn't do it line of sight like light works. You notice the noise will spread over the top of a wall. It does that in 3 dimensions. So if this is the edge of the wall, it will do the same thing. So if you put an opening in the barrier, you're just letting a lot of noise in behind. And as I understand it, where they wanted the gap in the barrier was by one of the ponds. That's the worst place to put a hole in the barrier, because water will skip the noise very effectively. So we don't like to leave gaps in the barriers. Now, there was a drainage component to that. I'll let Ben answer that question.
Yes, I understand that the section they were talking about was by the south pond. I'm sorry, the location was over by the south pond. Right now, we've installed a weir to keep the pond at the level that it was designed to be at. If the water were to build up in that area higher than 6 inches, that's where the bottom of the wall will be, and the water will overflow through the drain holes in the wall in that location. So the wall kind of comes up and goes down right by the pond, so that if it, for some reason, did get higher than 6 inches above where the lake level is set to be, it'll overflow there and go out into the opening area.
Now, at this point, we can entertain some questions on noise. I'll try to answer as many as I can before we move on to the next section. Yes, sir.
I don't have a noise question. I have a question in reference to the wall and the design of the wall, if you'll
We'll get to
entertain that.
in another section.
Okay, well, you had addressed it in your first section.
Yeah, that was just the drainage, because the question there was a 2-part question. One is a
Okay.
gap for the drainage, but that affected the noise. That's why we addressed it in the transition. Yes, sir.
How far from the wall does the noise shadow it?
It depends on how tall the wall is. I couldn't give you the exact measurements. As I said, the best way to determine how effective it is to walk behind the wall.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Why was the wall dropped down in sections that are closest to the highway that are going to eliminate the effectiveness of the wall being there and cause additional noise to come across? The lowest parts of the wall are actually by the closest homes next to the highway.
Again, that's a design question. When we modeled it, we used a uniform height all the way across.
So does that mean?
Yes, sir.
So does that mean that they're going to raise the wall up even on top?
Again, that's a design question. We're going to be addressing that later.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You use trees or vegetation for noise control?
No, we don't. It's more of a psychological effect that you get from that. To get a measurable reduction in noise, you need trees that are about 16 feet tall, a section 100 feet thick, so thick you can't see through it, so thick you can't walk through it. We don't get that kind of a situation coming up very often. And to go from bare ground to get that would take a number of years, and it's more effective to use a noise barrier. Any other questions? And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper. I think this is going to be the gentleman's going to be answering one of your questions right here. It sounds like, so further ado, Mr. Ben Bishop.
Hi. I guess first we will talk about the drainage. On slide 7, we'll start in the south end of the wall that's up. Okay, this is where we were getting some flooding. It's by that park y'all have, and there's a swale that drains in there, and we had these pipes. This is what it was like before the big rain we had late April. That was filled up from the North Lake, and you'll notice it had some silt fence, and that was there. They have to have that during construction for environmental purposes, and if you don't have the proper silt fences, we can get fined. And we needed to take it down before that rain hit, and it didn't get done, and that's why that area filled up. If you notice the second slide, this is how it is now. You have 2 pipes going all the way through. Also, for the construction road, they only had 1 pipe going through, and now they have the full 2 pipes. This should be able to handle any water that comes down that swale. The next slide. This is where I guess on the south end of the wall, the construction roadway was built before the concrete pads were put in. And when they put the pads in, they put them below the construction road, but also below the property owner behind there, like it's supposed to be. With the road too high, that caused the water to not flow properly from the back property owner through the drain inlets, the drain slots, and off into the ponding area. Now the roadway, for the next shot, they've smoothed that all out. You notice there's no ponding in this area here anymore, and all that water in that area will come straight across the road and go into the drainage channels where it's supposed to go. On the north side, there's also a 42-inch pipe that drains the lake, the second lake from the south, and I believe the street. That was blocked with obstructions and stuff, and that has been cleaned out. So with the removal of the roadway from blocking the drainage slots, the 224 inches being cleared out and going all the way through to the drainage area, and then that 42 being opened up, that should alleviate that drainage problems, or those drainage problems. I think that's the last one of mine. One more? Let's see which one is it. Go ahead. Oh, the wave pattern, okay. We have to follow the natural ground, because if we don't, then if we build it higher, then the property behind it will not drain through the wall, and you'll end up ponding like we had here before when it wasn't. So we follow the natural terrain, specifically in that on the north side, that's a very low area, and it has to drain into that ditch right next to 146, and so we have to follow those contours, and so that's why the wall will undulate with the ground. In a nice place going straight along a roadway, it tends to be pretty flat, and so you tend to have a much flatter sound wall. In this case, we've got lots of contours. On the south side, we're going to have the first house is right at ground level. The next 2, they built up embankments. We have to stay up with that, or there's going to be a big drop off between the wall and their house. So, and then we have to go back down so that the lake will drain if it did overflow. So there is going to be some differences in the height of the wall and where the wave connects. We're going to try to minimize those as much as possible, but these are just things that can't be avoided with the contours of the land. I think that's got what I've got written here. Do you have any?
What I want to do is, the HOA president, if you give me your flash drive, I'd like him to put it in speak.
Okay.
Basically, just to answer the question, because he's got some pictures for the drainage department.
Okay.
This is Jason Smith of the HOA, so I'm gonna let him ask the questions for show these pictures.
Thank all of them. You can start one. I'm Jason Smith. I live at 1326 Windleaf. Also the president of the Bioforce Maintenance Association, which is going to be the north side of Shoreacres Boulevard. This is some of the issues. Apparently, one of our big issues that we're having is the lack of communication between TxDOT and the homeowners, and going to the meetings that we've been going to for the last 5 years, and dealing with TxDOT. And apparently, from the meeting tonight so far, it seems like we're still having a lack of communication. In 2005, we received this letter. I'm sorry, in 2010, we received a letter saying that the sound wall was going to be built. They gave us an option of wall colors and wall designs. 2013, they sent us this letter right here saying that, hey, the wall's still going to be built. However, we had some issues with the texture of the design, so we got 2 more designs. Next slide, please. This is that letter. Keep going. This is what the wall was originally designed to be like on the residential side of the homes. It's supposed to have a stacked stone look with a nice gray color and a darker gray stone. On the outside, again, it was supposed to be that tan color that you originally saw, not with the bright blue columns, but with the gray columns, and then the waves were supposed to be the blue color. That was the design that was originally told to us. Somewhere in the 5-year process or 2-year process from the time we received the letter till now, we're having another lack of communication. You see what we're getting, and now the question seems to be is, are they going to paint it? That was never the question. Was are they going to paint it? The question was, what are we going to do to make it not an eyesore to our community? And as you can see, that last picture that they showed us looked pretty much like an eyesore to me, my personal opinion. Next one, please. This is what we're currently looking at now. You can continue to go to that. Actually, you can go to the next section. Slide. Exit out of that. Escape out of that. And go to issue number 2. This was the second issue that we had discussed at the last meeting, and that was a continuation with the ups and downs of the wall and what we were looking at from the outside. Next slide. As you can see, again, this wave was supposed to be painted blue with the tan behind it, and if you were to do that, I know that the picture that they're showing us now shows it all one color, but it was originally supposed to be the waves were blue through the tan. And that was the issue that we had last time, is what are they going to do to straighten that up and to make it look appeasing? Not only is this the first thing you see entering our subdivision, but this is the first thing you see entering the city of Shoreacres as you drive into the entire city. And you know, in my opinion, the picture that they showed us doesn't suffice what it was supposed to look like and intended to look like and what they agreed upon. And again, it just shows the ups and downs. You can escape out of that and go to issue number 3, please. The third issue was the flooding. And again, we talked about the flooding issues, and at last meeting, we were guaranteed that the flooding issues were taken care of. Well, I don't know if anybody else remembers, but at the end of that meeting, we had another heavy rain that night. Well, guess what? My backyard flooded again. The water was over the bridge. Same situation at midnight. I ended up calling Mr. Waller and saying, hey, we're having the exact same issues that y'all guaranteed me were taken care of. My concern is, are these issues resolved? I mean, is TxDOT gonna finish this wall, walk away from it, and then we're gonna have another Ike, and all our homes that didn't flood during the last Ike are now gonna be underwater because we have no, or the drainage has been blocked, or there's not proper drainage for the wall. I agree that there is drainage slots in the wall throughout. I have no problems with that. What I have a problem with, and continue going through some of those, is the wall appears to have been dug down and it holds water at the bases. And this is my bridge, it was completely underwater. And then the next day after the meeting, it was again underwater. This is where it's flooding out into the end. And it just became like a river. There was actually fish being swept out of the ponds into the outside drainage. You can see where it's like a river through there, flowing out. And all that water's flowing out of the ponds into my neighbor's yard. Okay? All right, next issue. And this is the drainage issues that we're talking about. I understand and appreciate that they said that they came out and they leveled it out and now the water can flow through. The problem is, as you can see, the water's not gonna flow. Even if it's down on that side, it still builds up on this side because it's down lower than the natural elevation of the land. TxDOT said that they came in and they did it based on the contour of the land. They didn't. You can look at all the property. If you walk along the property, you can see where it's been dug down. Some of my property owners, especially in my neighbor's house, is, you know, they dug probably 2 foot in the ground to put it in, and then it comes back up on the other side. Now, yeah, I'm sure you can grade it and make it to where it's correct. The problem is has it been done, or are we gonna be left high and dry when we have another storm? That's my concern. Is you can see it's built up. This is the first house on the north side of Shoreacres Boulevard where the water's just sitting in his yard. You can see it floods its whole yard every time it rains. That's his backyard when it after the rain after the meeting, or before the meeting. Okay. And then the next issue. Of course, they did that. The trash and debris that we were looking at.
But we do thank them for that.
Yes.
It really.
Yeah, they came in and cleaned it up.
They cleaned up.
My concern is going through this issue, again, we've got several issues that were addressed, okay? Is the wall gonna be painted? I don't think was ever a question that we had because we were told it was gonna be painted. The question was, what are y'all gonna do to beautify the wall like y'all originally agreed upon to make it to where it's not an eyesore to the people? We have to look at this. We have to live with this. This is the entrance to our city, the entrance to our community. And when TxDOT came in and said, hey, we're gonna do this, y'all told us that we're gonna make it look nice. And we're gonna make it appeasing to y'all, and we're gonna make it pleasant to come home to. And for the last 5 years, we've been dealing with nothing but lack of communications, excuses, and we continue to, it seems like to me, we continue to get the same excuses that we're having time after time. The last meeting, we were supposed to have everybody here that could answer all the questions. We're here again tonight trying to get the same questions answered, okay? You know, there's gotta be something that can be done to make this wall other than slapping a coat of paint on it one time that's never gonna be maintained. And it's, in a couple of years, it's gonna look horrible. There's gotta be an answer to the solution. The areas of the sound wall drainage that were dug down into the yards of the neighbors and stuff that are building up. I promise you guys, engineers and doctors or whatever, come out after it rains and walk that wall and see what happens. The day after our meeting last time, I was completely underwater again in the backyard. The bridge was completely underwater, and I was guaranteed that they found that drainage issue and it was resolved. That first picture that the gentleman here showed us of the 2 drainage pipes, that is not the issue. That has nothing to do with the issue. The park was never a problem, although it's holding water because it's still high and the wall's lower. The drainage issue was coming from the main drains off the roadway of Winley Drive that come all the way across from the back property on the north end into what's supposed to go into the bay. That's the issue that we're facing, and instead of the overflow valves or the overflow drainage that we have set up for the ponds to drain into when it rains in excess and it drains and it goes out to the bay, now we have the streets flooding, which is overflowing into the ponds and causing damage to our homes, to our property, and to everything else we have. And that's not even a heavy rain. That's a rain with 4 inches. And we had about a 4-foot rise in water. So, you know, again, I'm frustrated. I know there's a lot of people here frustrated. I'm sorry it's come down to this, but this needs to be resolved in a way that's appealing and appeasing to everybody, and that guarantees that y'all aren't gonna walk away and we're gonna have flooding issues for the next 20 years. Because y'all are out here supposed to be every day. Now, what's gonna happen when y'all disappear and the job's done and we do have a major issue, because we're never gonna see y'all again. Y'all aren't gonna be back out here. So we need to get this done, and we need to make sure that it gets resolved correctly and still make it a pleasant sight to see.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
I'm gonna let you answer all those questions in the ag.
All right, this is, sorry, is this your property or the one on the south side of?
No, that's the park. You'll have to go back to the last section. That's the park property where the power pole
Okay. Oh, where the power pole is?
was disconnected.
All right, well, you had some pictures of.
Go to the drainage issue number 4.
Yeah, these issues. In this situation, you want the wall to be slightly lower than the property owners, because you want the property owner's water to drain off to the wall, and then you want the front side of the wall to be lower than the wall. In this case, we had the road in front of it, which blocked that. We've gone through, we've regraded, so the water will run off of the property owner's property, onto the wall, drain through the slots, and then across where the road used to be. This should not be a problem. If it is still a problem, if we do have rain, we can come out, regrade it, and fix it. This should be handled. Right now, if you go out there, there is no standing water, except there is a little bit of water between where the wall is on the backside, or where the pad is on the backside, and where the property owner, where they haven't refilled that in. Once they fill that in, you won't have any ponding behind the wall in those sections. On your section, I need to arrange to meet with you so I can see exactly how that north lake drains. I know at one point it comes over the west side, over embankment, but then it flows down.
No, it doesn't. It has a pipe that runs through the drainage of the roadway. Windleaf itself has 2 drains, and the pipe runs north and south.
Okay.
And it goes from the very north end of that back property all the way under the roadway south into the ditch that comes out on the west side of that wall.
All right, so the North Lake has the same kind of a large inlet that the second to the North Lake has?
Correct.
Okay.
But the problem is every time it rains, that blocks up for whatever reason, and all that water that runs down those drains in the roadway comes up through the ponds and floods all the backyards, and it floods the neighbors' houses, it floods the entire community's ponds. It's causing damage to the ponds. It's ruining the chemicals and the dye that we put in the ponds. It's causing fish to be swept out. I mean, there's all kinds of issues that this has caused.
Okay, yeah,
and it's
I know that
supposed
there
to
were
be resolved.
obstructions on the end of that 42-inch pipe that comes
And that's
from
what
that area.
that's what they said last meeting, that they fixed, and it was all resolved, and there wouldn't be another problem. And that night we got another rain, and it flooded again, and that bridge was underwater again.
Okay.
And I called Mr. Waller at midnight and said, we've got issues. Someone needs to get out here and clean this up.
Okay, we can look at that again. The drainage from that has remained the same. We haven't touched it. And so if your ponds are backing up, we didn't change the pipe size, we didn't change how it was draining, we didn't do anything to alter that. The only thing we changed is when it does overflow then it has to go through where the wall is. But the wall is not increasing the drainage areas for those two north ponds.
No, I'll tell you what the problem is. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out where you've got that pipe coming through. You've got a large, probably 3 or 4 foot pipe. I don't know the size of it. And then you've got another drainage pipe that's up higher than the lowest level of the other pipe.
But that pipe's been removed, hasn't it? Yeah,
No, it's still
pipe-
sitting there. I've still got
It's sitting
pictures
next
of
to it, but it's not, that pipe was shoved in there for the roadway. It's not, that pipe, that extra piece of pipe extension is no longer part of the drainage. It's been pulled off to the side. So, that secondary, we can go out and look at it again, or I will go out and make sure. But when I was looking at that situation, there was an extension pipe that was smaller than the 42-inch pipe inserted in there for the roadway. They have pulled that out, excavated it, set it off to the side, and so now the 42-inch pipe, and they've cleaned out the mud and muck in front of that pipe. It still holds water because that pipe was just really low to begin with. There's a limit to how much cleaning we can do because that is a wetland, and we can't clean out wetlands.
That's not a wetland either. The wetlands are on the north end of the wall. This is per TxDOT when y'all originally started the wall, because y'all had to pull a permit for the wetlands, and y'all keep saying that that's a wetland, and y'all won't clean out that ditch either. That's another issue that we're running into, is the drainage ditch is filled with trees and bushes, and there's not getting any good flow through the drainage. It's a ditch. It needs to be cleaned out.
I will check and see, but I believe that was a wetland. Trying to think, what was another one?
There's nothing but excuse.
Just go back to the main picture, back of Jason's yard, I think it was
Oh,
the pond with the
Yeah,
walkway.
Jake, on that one, I've got to look at it and see exactly where his drainage is coming from. From what, I'm not sure exactly why his is not draining, and I didn't have access to it when I was over there looking, and so I need to get with you and.
Mr. Bishop, no disrespect. Every person here has my phone number and contact and can contact me anytime, and they know that. They can go into my yard. I've been with every single person here as far as the gentlemen that are on the job site and the construction crews and everything else walking that property 15 times. And, you know, I've never once been contacted.
I have not contacted.
It's just an issue that, again, we're facing the same thing over and over and over again.
Right, but right now you're saying your water is higher than it's supposed to be, correct? It's up by your bridge.
No, what happens is it will eventually settle down.
I
But
know.
it's not draining. Anytime it rains, if you were to get a rain tonight, 4 inches, it would be
Okay, but
that
right
bridge
now
would
it's
be
at
flooded.
the level it should be.
Well, it's higher than way higher than it normally is.
Okay, anyway, we can discuss this. I'll get with you tomorrow, hopefully, and if that's convenient, and we can look at that and work out what your drainage problem is. A question?
You have a question? You raised your hand. Do you have a question?
Yeah, the question that I had sort of related to the first thing where they said they were gonna paint waves to the back of the wall, which I doubt will be any more forthcoming than what we have now, because I don't see them painting waves to the back of the wall when they're not doing it in the front of the wall. And it comes back to the fact that, we were promised that the wall was gonna look one way, and now it, looks like a. Yeah, and that's not even going to the folks that are on the other side where the wall is very close, which we're not necessarily addressing here, but they should be here. The wall is very close to their houses. That it's just a raw, unfinished wall. And we agreed to it. Oh, yeah, this is, well, actually, we agreed to one thing, so we couldn't have access to the well. Would you like this? Yes, we agreed to that. You saw a picture of what we agreed to. So far, if it gets painted, I think most of us are going to want to move out as soon as possible, so it sort of looks nice for a little while.
I guess the painting issue, that's,
Now, I'm talking about the original
But,
construction.
the original, I tell you, can you bring up the picture of the wall at the waves for me, please? Okay. biggest concerns, especially as one of the elected officials, that is, it would make a horrible eyesore. And I understand the citizens often know that, because, like, you're right there, good example. On these waves, showing you, now this one here, of course, it's on the middle, it's beautiful.
That's the outside, we're talking
Right,
about the
right,
inside.
I'm just going, I'm only starting one side.
Thank you.
On the, you know, the waves on the outside facing the highway, I mean, I don't, personally as a mayor, I'm looking at it, I don't see how you're gonna make the differences. I mean, there's some that are a good, what, 2 feet probably?
Or more.
Maybe 2 or 3 feet. That waves, and Lucy, you explain to me, tell me exactly, can that be fixed to where it's cheetah
Yeah, that was my part, that was the last part of
Okay,
it.
you're gonna-
We take
Okay,
this and.
got you, okay.
But, now that you brought it up, that's, the fabricator's gonna come and fix it on the site. Already, did the change order and direct the contractor to come and put that scheme, the wave scheme right next to where it needs to go. So it's gonna be changed. As soon as the next day, the work, was told that the contractor was direct to get the fabricator to come and fix it. So he's gonna come and fix it before we finish. The scheme that you show, being 2 feet up, is gonna be fixed, but it's gonna be close to the scheme.
So
Switching
does
to
that
the,
mean-
go
Does
ahead.
that mean that the level is still gonna be cattywampus?
It
The
should be
waves
a-
are gonna be in,
Well, you're gonna cut it at least, when you're stepping up, you have to have at least a 4-inch minimum, because you're stepping up, but it's gonna get close. Right now, you can see there was modification to some of those, RCPs, so that's why it was raised high, but now the fabricator's gonna come to the side and work and fix that, and lower that, so you can see the skid more, and a more proportional, where you can see more uniform.
Is that gonna be the waves or the top of the?
No, just the waves, because that was what, yeah, just the waves, top, that's the same.
Let's let's finish with this gentleman's question first. Now, the backside is
Or
question.
the backside?
Backside, yes.
Well, this is
Right.
something Mr. Stanley can answer that on the sound wall.
What we can do is, we've got surveys for the adjacent property owners here tonight. You can come up after we're done, I'll give those to you. And the adjacent property owners can decide how they want it painted. Just monochrome, softer tan,
We're not talking about, we don't want paint.
the texture issues is a problem that we ran into with the construction. And we're not able to go back and give you the tollway ashlar stone that you requested. Unfortunately, someone did not get the letters back out to you when they were supposed to about that. We apologize for that. But the painting that we are offering is the best that we can do at this moment. Yes, sir.
Why is the brick not an option? I don't know, maybe I missed that in all these topics, but you're saying it's not an option, but it was an option. What changed?
Yes.
When we offered it to you folks, it was the first time we were offering this. There was a problem with the construction. I think I may want to let Lucio answer that one because I got it on the tail end of it. Lucio was dealing with the contractor. Does she want to try to explain? They were wondering why we couldn't have 2 textures, the ripped on the front and the tollway ashlar stone on the back.
The question is about what's gonna be in the back, right?
Yes.
Why is that gonna be?
The question is, originally the stone was gonna go on the back,
Uh-huh.
now it's not. Why is it not going on?
I think based on the email that we have, the fabricator was not able to do that in the back, and that's when it was brought into the environmental section, and that's what Mr. Cooper just said. Somebody missed and failed to send, a letter saying that, it was not able possible to put that blocks in the back. So.
And I-
other than-
Unacceptable.
yeah. Yeah.
Going to his question, if you were offering the option, that implies that the fabricator had been able to put one of the options in the past. So why isn't the option available anymore? That's the question.
That's something we have to ask the fabricator, but I'm saying, when we got that time, and the fabricator approached and said, this is what, it cannot be done, it was brought into the environment, but somebody failed, like Mr. Cooper said, to send a letter saying, we were not able to do the back, the blocks. And that's basically, I don't know what alternative, maybe something Mr. Cooper can come and say what other alternative can be done. other than the paint or, you know?
Is it because of the drainage?
Huh?
Is it because of the drainage?
No.
Is the drainage so bad now?
No.
You put bricks on it, it won't drain
No.
any better?
The drainage will be taken care of with Mr. Ben Bishop and then,
I guess the question is, so you forgot to send an email stating that you couldn't have the brick, okay? So then, does that mean that the wall would have been, we could have had an option to say, well, then we don't want the wall?
that's something that Mr. Cooper, can you answer that if we wasn't able to?
It's
get
kind of
that?
like a guarantee, right? You're told one thing, and you can't do it, and they say, okay, then we don't want the wall at all. Or we didn't even have a choice in that matter, correct?
We sent all the letters to the adjacent property owners. They had stated they wanted the wall, so we were working on that basis, trying to provide them other alternatives for the surface spacing to their homes. We did not entertain the idea of removing the wall because we already had an affirmative vote from the adjacent property owners that they did want it.
The affirmative vote for the stacked rock.
Based on the previous information.
Based on the previous.
Well,
You didn't get an affirmative vote for the way it looks now.
the original vote was for an aggregate, and we ran into problems with that has removed that as an option for TxDOT. We came back with the alternative and then ran into construction problems with the contractor. And this is the first time we had tried doing two textures. And so there's a learning curve there. But at no point did we entertain the idea of not putting up a wall. We were trying to find some surface on the backside that would make it more amenable to the adjacent property owners.
This was it?
What was it?
This,
Okay, now this is the size.
no, I mean, what you saw pictures of is what's amenable to us, I mean, this is really gross.
Unfortunately, the contractor was not able to provide that. And at that point, we decided to go with the smooth texture, and we failed to get the letter out to the adjacent property owners to notify them.
We have gone with another contractor.
That's not something that I would be involved with. That would have to be taken up by someone else.
Jay, we'll let Jason go next.
And she has one after that. I'm gonna say the exact same thing I said in the last meeting. I'm calling TxDOT out on this because the email that I just received a couple months ago, they gave me a chronology of events saying that it was like 12 days after the letter came out saying that they couldn't get the texture on the walls, and they never said anything. I'm calling them out and calling whatever you want to call it, that it's not true, just because of the fact that several months after that letter came out, they were asking me as the president of the association to get with the resident owners to get those forms filled out and turned back in so they could get those things ordered and get the textures and the colors of the wall and everything, or the everything voted on and approved. And this was several months after, and now they're saying 12 days or 13 days later is when they determined they couldn't put this texture on the wall. I think the ball was dropped somewhere and they just didn't do the texture. I think it's something that's still available.
So,
Somebody dropped
At this time, so residents in the back of the wall, what are the options?
Currently, the options we have are either a monochrome softer tan or an option with the racing blue waves painted on the bottom with the softer tan above.
And no other options at all?
Not that we're offering at this point.
What if,
Just jump and ask a question.
what if those options are not acceptable to us?
That you're gonna have to take up with someone higher up in the chain of command than I am.
where they at.
You have another jumping in the back.
The question I have is, what, going forward, what are the options about setting our property back? Because the solution that he's proposing is entertainment to our property. Period.
His question is basically the wall, the eyesore, I mean, it's going to damage the property back, yes, sir.
tell you anything about property values. I'm not an appraiser. And any appraising TxDOT does is hired out to independent contractors. So I can't answer that.
Maybe I'm wrong in assuming this, but it seems like y'all are just working against us and not with us. I mean, it's pretty much what y'all say goes, and what we care about doesn't matter. And to me, that's unacceptable, because we're the ones that got to live with it. It's our tax dollars paying for it, and y'all are up here telling us what we are and what we aren't gonna live with. That's unacceptable.
We're offering the options that we can.
Okay, I got a question. If the contractor could put in a change order in order for us to be happy to get this textured wall that we want, and that if we're able to provide a quote for a company to come in and provide the texture that we can all agree upon, would that be a possible option? Because I know with all contracts there are always change orders, which is in addition to the contract price, correct? So I'm just wanting to know if we can provide, you know, another possible option rather than the options that you've given us that are the eyesores.
We'll consider that, and like
Okay.
I said, if you can go through the mayor, we'll consider that and change order. It could be possible.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's not, it could be possible. Just get it together, and then I think you have my email address, and I'll be glad to follow through and escalate it to the upper higher management and supervisor, the district engineer, and he'll make the final decision, and I think it could be possible.
So my understanding is the survey that Dr. Cooper is gonna hand out tonight, it's very important for the citizens that live adjacent to that wall, put their information on it, whether it be front and back, but that's.
That's true.
I just want to push your numbers first.
Are there any walls in TxDOT's jurisdiction that look like the one we want it to look like?